Welcome back to Rank and File Sports, where we are grading every single NFL draft class based on three categories. First of all, we're going to grade based off of whether or not the team drafted the players that fit their needs for next season, as well as the overall talent that they got, just assessing the draft class as a whole. And then finally, the value. Is each player worth where they were drafted at? Were they a steal at that position, or did the team maybe reach a little bit and not get as good a value as they could have if they had traded the pick? And then after that, we're going to go ahead and give them an overall grade. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video.
After winning the NFC West last season and restructuring Matthew Stafford's contract before the draft, the Rams went into it needing a cornerback, a linebacker, wide receiver, running back, and a quarterback. First round, they did have a pick, but they ended up trading out of it and went back into the second round and got Terrence Ferguson, a tight end from Oregon. Doesn't really fit a need that they needed, but Terrence Ferguson could function as a wide receiver if they really needed to. He was one of the many dynamic weapons that Oregon had last season in their undefeated year prior to the playoffs. So I think talent-wise, it's a pretty good pick for them, but maybe a little bit of a reach considering that it was still a tight end. The best tight ends to this point were all taken.
Yeah, it's not a terrible pick, but I feel like they could have traded back and still ended up getting him. Their third round pick, though, went Josiah Stewart, an edge rusher out of Michigan. This one, honestly, not that bad of value. Drafted right around where he should have been. He's a really talented guy, and I think he's going to fit in really nicely on this Rams defensive line.
Yeah, especially with the draft picks they had last year on the defensive line, including Jared Verse, who won Defensive Rookie of the Year. So great pick for the Rams here. Then they took Jerkez Hunter out of Auburn, running back, finally addressing a need, but this one was a bit of a reach. He was the 18th overall running back, overall ranked 188th. Um, if they really liked him for whatever reason, then it's not that bad, but since they still have Cam Akers and drafted Blake Corum last year, maybe a little weird to have running back as a positional need, but even then, taking a guy like Jerkis Hunter at this point in the draft, it's a little questionable, but once again, if they liked him for a certain reason, I can't say I blame them.
Yeah, and then their fifth round pick going Ty Hamilton out of Ohio State. Honestly, pretty solid pick here. They got good value for him. And I think he's going to be, again, really, really good on this Rams defensive line. This might be one of the better defensive lines in the entire NFL, especially in a few years when all of these guys have had time to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. They went from having just one man being the defensive line and Aaron Donald to having the entire defensive line be a very strong unit. And then later on in the fifth round, they got probably one of the biggest steals of the draft. They got Chris Paul Jr., a linebacker out of Ole Miss, the number four overall linebacker at the fifth round of the 36th pick. That's an insane amount of value. Also addressing a positional need. Like this is the best pick that the Rams made this entire draft class, without a doubt.
Yeah, and then seventh round, finally getting a wide receiver. And they went with Kanata Mumpfield out of Pittsburgh, which I can't say I know that much about him. He averaged 15.6 yards per catch last year, played in the ACC, so like not Big Ten or SEC, but still Power Four conference. So I'm sure he'll be a good depth wide receiver. I'm just not sure how much time he'll see on the field this season, if ever.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a little bit of a weird pick. Definitely a reach, but like you said, probably a depth piece for right now, considering they still have Puka Nacua and they just signed Devontae Adams this offseason to step in for a year or two. So maybe just something to plug in for now until they can get a better wide receiver, maybe next year or through a trade or undrafted free agent.
Yeah, but anyways, taking a look at the team needs. They got a linebacker, they got a wide receiver, they got a running back. They really did it in kind of the later rounds. So while they addressed three of them, we're only going to give them a C minus because it wasn't really a priority for them. Talent wise, going to be a B minus. Terrence Ferguson, like Connor was saying, really, really solid tight end. So I do think he's going to do really well in LA. Josiah Stewart, talented edge rusher. Um, Jarquez Hunter was an okay pick. I like Ty Hamilton and obviously Chris Paul Jr. very good. So, nobody's insane in this draft class, but definitely a lot of talent here. And then value wise, it's going to be a B minus as well. There were a few reaches, some of them not terribly crazy, like Terrence Ferguson. The Mumfield pick, as well as Jarquez Hunter, definitely sizable reaches there. So that's going to hurt the value grade a little bit. But overall, this is going to come out to a C plus draft class.
Yeah, this draft class is really saved by Chris Paul Jr. getting him so late. But overall, for the Rams, I think the C plus maybe is a little misleading considering they banked on the fact that they're going to have Matthew Stafford for one more year playing at a high level because that's why they traded out of the first round. They didn't want to take a quarterback in the first round then, and they didn't bother to take one later on, which means they're probably preparing to take one next year to get a backup because right now the other quarterbacks on the roster outside Matthew Stafford are Stetson Bennett and Jimmy Garoppolo. Both are old, so they need a new, younger quarterback. If they're not going to get one in free agency, then they're going to do it in the draft next year with a loaded QB class. So even though it's going to be a C plus for this year, I think they still had a very solid draft class for the future. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our other videos, including the next few draft grades we have for the NFC West. And we'll see you in the next video.